The Russian Black Sea Fleet has turned out to be another myth of the Russian Federation's supposed invincibility at sea. By sinking the flagship of the Russian fleet, the cruiser Moskva, Ukraine opened the score for damaged and destroyed Russian ships in modern world history. And it must be said that since then Ukraine has made significant progress in destroying the enemy fleet. Explosions in Novorossiysk, in Sevastopol Bay, and generally throughout the Black Sea have clearly shown Ukraine has learned how to successfully strike enemy surface targets. However, the past few days have truly been a triumph for our special services. Just in the past week, we managed to destroy more than half a dozen military vessels. At the same time, Ukrainian intelligence has announced this is just the beginning.
They have several dozen ships over there. We've already taken out about 10 of them. That's already more than 15% of the entire Russian Black Sea fleet.
The unlucky week for the Russians began with the destruction in Yevpatoria of an advanced S-400 Triumph air defense system, which was one of the key installations on the Crimean Peninsula. Its value is estimated at $1 and $2 billion. By the way, it is this system that the Russians compare to the American Patriot system. However, in reality, the latter has repeatedly shot down supersonic Kinzhal missiles, while the Russian Triumph was taken out by the first two Ukrainian Neptune missiles. But the occupiers' troubles were only just beginning. The very next night, massive explosions suddenly rocked the territory of the Sevastopol shipyard.
This facility primarily services ships of the Russian Federation's Black Sea Fleet.
That was the case that night as well. Undergoing repairs, there was the large military landing ship Minsk, which became the third vessel of its class to be destroyed.
What does this indicate? Well, it clearly shows that the armed forces of Ukraine are actively carrying out preemptive strikes on large landing ships in order to significantly minimize the possibility of any potential landing operations on the coast of Ukrainian port cities, and thus they are taking important steps to defend these areas.
But from the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, the Russians had no luck with landing troops on the shores of Odessa. After learning over time what Ukrainian Neptune missiles are capable of, they abandoned this idea altogether. Then a different job was found for the Russian landing ships.
It was used accordingly to transport military cargo from Sevastopol and Novorossiysk to meet the needs of the Russian group.
Also, it is precisely the Minsk and similar vessels that serve as Russia's backup logistics option in case the Crimean bridge is destroyed. But it wasn't even that ship that was the icing on the cake that night. For the very first time in recorded history, a military submarine vessel was struck by enemy cruise missiles, while it was also docked in the repair docks. The upgraded attack submarine Rostov-on-Don, according to preliminary assessments, will not be able to sail the seas and oceans in the near future. Launched less than 10 years ago and costing over $300 million, this vessel may very well become a Ukrainian trophy after the liberation of the peninsula. After all, it's impossible to transport the submarine in its current condition. And the plant where it was being repaired ceased operations after the missile strike.
The fire was classified as 4th class. This is a very serious classification indicating the large scale of the fire and accordingly the destruction of both the port infrastructure and the damage to vessels located directly in the dry docks.
Later, more specific information began to emerge about what exactly was used to carry out the strike. According to statements from local separatists, Ukraine launched 3 naval drones and 10 cruise missiles. And those missiles were the British Storm Shadow and French Scalp missiles, so hated by the Russians. It is likely that these were the very missiles personally signed by President Zelensky the day before.
Let's recall the recent statement by the Ukrainian president, who said the Ukrainian side has strike capabilities with a range over 700 kilometers.
But that's not all. On the morning of September 14th, 2 Russian Vasily Bykov-class patrol boats also ended their patrols on a negative note. According to the Strategic Communications Directorate of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, the vessels sustained certain damages. Simply put, they are no longer capable of carrying out combat missions. A small Russian tuna-class boat also had a rough time in the Ukrainian Sea. In September alone, it became the 2nd vessel of this class to sink. Just a few days later, Ukrainian Special Services also reportedly managed to successfully hit the Russian missile boat Samum. It is known that it was hit in the stern from a completely different side of Crimea. Fortunately, the vessel didn't have far to be towed back to Sevastopol Bay.
Not far from the entrance to Sevastopol Bay, this little sea guy actually caught this Russian ship. And the ship is called Samum, and it struck this ship. Yes, it really struck the ship. Despite all attempts to destroy it and prevent the collision, it hit the rear right part of the Russian vessel, causing significant damage to the ship.
So, once again, 6 days, 6 ships. And for the first time in the General Staff's reports, and in fact in this entire millennium, a whole Russian submarine was hit. And that's only what is known and officially confirmed. It truly has been a fiery week. In addition to the direct destruction of equipment, these attacks on the Russian Black Sea fleet will have other consequences as well, analysts believe. First and foremost, the Russians have once again realized there are no safe places left for them in the Black Sea.
I wouldn't rule out the possibility that after the recent successful strikes on the repair sites and accordingly the permanent locations of the Black Sea Fleet vessels in the waters of Sevastopol Bay, a decision will likely be made to redeploy the Black Sea Fleet ships apparently to the Mediterranean Sea, at least for the foreseeable future, not even to Novorossiysk.
Moreover, the increased frequency of attacks in the waters and along the coast of the Black Sea signifies another crucial point. According to all NATO standards, such events are characterized as initial actions preceding the deoccupation of a region.
We can state that based on the available evidence, the nature of these strikes clearly indicates that the armed forces of Ukraine have moved to the first stage of a cascading operation to deoccupy Crimea.
And finally, I would like to mention Russia's unparalleled air defense system. The military factory, Sevastopol Bay, the missile boat, the Triumph system, and so on, all of these were obvious targets for both sides and were clearly covered by air defense systems. However, in reality, these systems turned out to be unable to protect even themselves. So there is no longer any reason to be surprised by new explosions, which will undoubtedly continue to occur in Crimea.
If we manage to successfully break through the missile defense system, it is clear evidence that the Russians are unable to protect the military infrastructure in the territory of occupied Crimea.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video so you don't miss even more news about how and with what the Ukrainian armed forces are destroying the enemy. But more about that in our new episode of Arsenal.